Welcome back to Skytech-Lens. Good evening. The North American auto industry is facing a seismic shock: tariffs. The US has reignited a tariff battle targeting imports from Canada and China, shaking Detroit's big three, GM, Ford, and Stellantis, to their core. These aren't just headlines, they're decisions that ripple from Detroit's factories to your local dealership. What happens when political promises to protect jobs collide with a global supply chain decades in the making? The big three are now squeezed by new duties and the massive cost of re-engineering their production. Today, we'll break down the timeline, the dollars at stake, and the tough choices facing automakers, workers, and buyers. Let's get into it. The tariff surge of 2025 hit like a sledgehammer. Overnight, automakers faced a wall of new duties, upending years of global trade strategy. GM's intricate supply chain became a liability, with imported electronics and parts now taxed heavily, costing billions. Ford's global platforms, once a strength, turned into financial anchors as tariffs made cross-border parts prohibitively expensive. Stellantis, with its transatlantic web of brands, faced chaos: which parts were hit, how to reroute, and what the immediate financial fallout would be. The legal landscape became a minefield, with automakers scrambling for exemptions and clarity, spending millions on lobbying and legal fees. Tariffs didn't just hit finished vehicles. They taxed thousands of components, from microchips to body panels, compounding costs at every step. C-suite plans were shredded. Innovation took a backseat to damage control. Suppliers, operating on razor-thin margins, were hit even harder. Many couldn't absorb the new costs, threatening the entire ecosystem. The shock was immediate: delayed projects, slashed investments, and a scramble to survive. Detroit's first blow wasn't just financial, it was a crisis of confidence and capability. The industry's long-term strategies were suddenly obsolete. Automakers and suppliers alike faced a new reality: adapt or risk collapse. The ripple effects reached every corner of the industry, from boardrooms to factory floors. The bottom line: the tariff storm was no surgical strike, it was a blunt force trauma to Detroit's core. The scramble for solutions had only just begun. Every decision now carried higher stakes and greater uncertainty. The industry's resilience was about to be tested like never before. Detroit was reeling and the world was watching. The first blow had landed, but the fight was far from over. The next moves would define the future of American auto manufacturing. Detroit's answer? A massive, risky pivot. Factories were gutted and retooled to bring production back to the US, a process costing billions and compressing years of work into months. Reshoring became the buzzword, but the reality was tough. America lacked the skilled workforce and infrastructure for advanced manufacturing. The EV transition, already underway, was supercharged by tariffs. GM doubled down on domestic battery plants, like its Ultium platform with LG Chem, aiming for a North American supply chain. Ford launched Blue Oval City, betting big on US-built electric trucks and batteries. Stellantis accelerated joint ventures in Indiana and Ontario, localizing EV supply for Jeep, Ram, and Dodge. The goal: control the battery supply chain, from raw materials to assembly, and insulate against future shocks. But the costs were staggering, and the timeline tight. Automakers bled cash in the short term, still paying duties on parts they couldn't yet make at home. The race was on: build a resilient supply chain before the financial pain became fatal. The crisis exposed the fragility of just-in-time global logistics. Detroit's new mantra: resilience over efficiency. The reshoring push and battery bets marked a fundamental shift in strategy. The industry was no longer just chasing the lowest cost, it was fighting for survival in a volatile, protectionist world. Every investment was a gamble on the future. The stakes had never been higher. The outcome would shape not just Detroit but the entire North American auto landscape. The pivot was underway, but the challenges were immense. The next chapter would test the industry's resolve and ingenuity. The clock was ticking. Tariffs didn't just hit factories, they hit your wallet. Automakers, facing billions in new costs, raised sticker prices. Deep discounts and incentives faded. Dealers, squeezed by shrinking margins, held firm on pricing. Negotiation power shifted away from buyers. Many consumers were priced out of new cars, turning to certified pre-owned vehicles, driving up used car prices and creating an inflationary spiral. Leasing surged as buyers sought lower monthly payments, even if it meant not owning the car. Automakers slashed entry-level models, focusing on high-margin trucks, SUVs, and luxury vehicles. Dealerships pivoted to service, financing, and warranties to stay afloat. The sales process shifted from volume to maximizing profit per sale. Incentives changed, cashback offers shrank, replaced by subsidized financing to manage affordability. For buyers, choices narrowed and prices climbed. The dream of affordable new car ownership slipped further out of reach for many. The retail landscape was fundamentally reshaped, more expensive, more complex, and more focused on profitability. The showroom became the final battleground for the consequences of global trade policy. Every transaction reflected the new reality: higher costs, fewer options, and a tougher path to ownership. Dealers and buyers alike had to adapt to survive. The days of easy deals and abundant choices were gone. The new normal was here, and it wasn't cheap. The industry's focus had shifted, survival over sales volume. The impact was felt in every dealership, every household. The ripple effects would last for years. The American car market would never be the same. The pressure was on, every decision mattered. The stakes had never been higher for buyers and sellers alike. While Detroit scrambled, Canada played a strategic hand. Protected by the USMCA, Canadian auto production became more valuable as US tariffs hit other countries. Canada's real edge? Resources, oil, gas, and the critical minerals needed for EVs. Automakers rushed to secure deals with Canadian mining and processing firms, fueling a wave of investment north of the border. Ontario and Quebec rolled out incentives, positioning Canada as Detroit's essential partner in building a resilient North American auto industry. But China's grip on the global supply chain remained strong. Even as new factories rose in the US and Canada, much of the machinery and refined materials still came from China. The EV battery supply chain, in particular, was deeply intertwined with Chinese processing. North American automakers found themselves indirectly reliant on Chinese inputs, even for local production. Canada had to balance its role as a secure US partner with its own deep ties to China. Complete decoupling wasn't realistic. North America needed China's manufacturing muscle. The Fortress North America narrative was tempered by global realities. Canada became a safe harbor in the tariff storm, but China's shadow loomed large. The supply chain web was too complex to untangle overnight. The new era demanded pragmatism, not isolation. The North American auto industry could build higher walls, but it couldn't escape globalization. The challenge was to adapt, not retreat. What's next? The next 2 years will reveal the true impact of these seismic shifts. In a steady-state scenario, tariffs remain, and Detroit's job market splits growth in high-tech roles, but layoffs in traditional manufacturing. Pricing stays high, with automakers focusing on profitable trucks and SUVs. Entry-level cars fade away. The affordability crisis persists, and incentives are targeted, not generous. If trade tensions ease, an upside relief scenario, costs drop, jobs stabilize, and affordable models could return. Consumers would see more incentives and lower prices. But if the trade war escalates, downside pain, expect layoffs, plant closures, and skyrocketing prices. The dream of reshoring would face harsh reality, and the market could seize up, risking recession. Most likely, we'll see a messy, mixed steady pain, constant risk, and a glimmer of hope. The industry must stay nimble, planning for all outcomes. The next 2 years are a tightrope walk, balancing high costs with uncertain rewards. The fate of hundreds of thousands of jobs hangs in the balance. The product mix will keep shifting toward high-margin vehicles. The gap between new and used car prices will remain wide. The industry's future depends on its ability to adapt, fast. Every scenario carries risk and opportunity. The stakes are enormous for workers, buyers, and the economy. The road ahead is anything but certain. Detroit stands at a crossroads, facing choices that will define its future. The Big Three must balance the push to de-risk from China with the reality of a global supply chain. Option 1, stay the course, absorb costs, and slowly build a more local supply chain, betting on long-term stability. Option 2, lobby for relief, hoping for lower tariffs and a return to global efficiency, but risking future shocks. Option 3, double down on protectionism, focusing on premium vehicles and survival, even if it means shrinking the market. Each path carries risk and opportunity, shaped by politics, economics, and consumer choices. The verdict isn't just in boardrooms, it's in your hands, every time you buy a car. Can Detroit truly de-risk from China? Will buyers accept higher prices or shift to leasing and used cars? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Detroit's next reinvention is underway, but the cost and the outcome are still unknown. The jury is still out. The battle for Detroit's future is far from over. Tariffs forced a reckoning with the risks of globalization, pushing GM, Ford, and Stellantis to rethink everything. Rebuilding domestic supply chains is a generational challenge, requiring capital, skills, and political will. The tension between long-term resilience and short-term survival will shape the industry for years. The cars we drive are products of a volatile global ecosystem. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. I'm SKL. See you next time. Thanks for watching. Subscribe the channel for more updates.